You loved the first one, and it showed, so today we present to you even more terrifying tales that will satiate, we hope, the part of you that wants more of the Conjuring world. I'm your host Raechel Fisher, and today we cover disturbing infections to demonizing possessions in our top 10 true stories scarier than the Conjuring, part 2. Number 10! This story comes from Reddit user Oscar Divine, and though it is far from demonic possession, I think anyone would find this story so terrifying this actually can happen. And the quote begins, "I've told this story before. I'm an eye doctor, and I had a patient come to me with an infected eyelid. 2 other eye doctors tried to treat and failed. They were dumping all sorts of medicine into it, and it wasn't getting any better, despite being on tons of meds. Apparently neither of them thought to flip the lid upside down, you know, that gross trick that some kids do with their upper eyelids. It was a painful maneuver for her very swollen eyelid, which might explain it. Anyhow, there appeared to be what looked like a visible abscess inside the tissue with thick, gooey material, and I thought I'd give it a nudge and saw it move. This wasn't an abscess, it was something else. I managed to remove it quite easily in one whole piece. It was a fly larva. The patient told me that she had a bug hit her in the eye a few days before she got this infection. I removed the larva, and within 2 days the wound closed and she was 100% recovered on basic antibiotic eye drops." Unquote. Can you imagine that? That sounds like what is it, like a friend of a friend story, but that's actually real and he has photos to prove it. Gross. Alright, number 9, the son of Sam. The year 1976 was a terrifying year to live in the Big Apple. Terror seemed to await around any corner, no one knowing if that day would be their last. The son of Sam killings were spontaneous, and no one knew who would be next, only the killer himself. During that summer, David Berkowitz shot 6 people and injured 2, but Berkowitz believed he wasn't the only one to blame. The most mysterious part about this case is the fact that he blamed the entire thing on the neighbor's dog, who he believed was possessed by an ancient demon. The dog's name was Harvey, and David worshipped him. While in prison though, Berkowitz made an addendum to his confession stating that he was actually following the ritual practices of a satanic cult he took part in. Could this be a case of mental illness or an actual case of demon taking control? No one can ever really be sure, which I think makes this story that much more terrifying. Number 8, Zozo. There are literally more than 100 reasons why we shouldn't use a Ouija board. Not only have I heard stories from the internet, but I've had friends who've had terrifying first-hand experiences, but even for me, the temptation is always there. I'm just always just curious, you know? Who knows who or what you're gonna bring through, but Zozo seems to be a name most people hear. The first reported appearance of Zozo happened in 1816 in Picardy, France, after a young girl fell under an intense demonic possession. Later, when Ouija boards became popular in the 20th century, Zozo started to become more and more popular. Zozo is hailed as the spirit of the Ouija board who devours souls and changes lives, but if you get on their bad side. A user on ghostbase.com shared their story, and it is terrifying. The family had used the board to communicate with their past loved ones, as I probably would too, and for a while it worked. The family was in tears as they spoke to the grandparents, but then the board switched, and when they asked who it was, it just spelled out OZ, 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 and continued. So they called it Oz. Oz, or Zozo as they found out later, had said that it had been them the entire time and that it simply read their minds for the answers. Terrified, they put the board away. Duh, as you should, and Oz was cursing and raging. They returned to the board a few weeks later and met with Oz again, who spouted nasty curses. So they put the board away again, and the family experienced some intense bad luck. There are tons of stories like this and worse, so if you needed another reason to second guess joining the fun, well, here it is. Number 7, the Axe Murder House in Basilica. The Axe Murder House, if it weren't for a sign outside that literally says murder house, one might pass it without giving it a second thought. Just another abandoned home. That is, unless you know its dark secret. The windows are tightly closed and covered as if trying to keep something in. On June 10, 1912, the family of Josiah Moore and their 2 guests were bludgeoned to death, and the walls of that house are the only witnesses to the crime and have concealed the identity of the killers for over 97 years. But that's not the only thing the walls keep trapped there. Audio, video, and photographic evidence of paranormal activity have given paranormal investigators a lot to talk about. The house is opened as a tourist spot, and some tours have been cut short due to children's voices, falling and flying objects, moving ladders, and tons more. If you're brave enough, you can actually stay the night and see if the house will reveal any hint at who the killers were. That's like a horror film in the making, so if you want more scared, There it is. Number 6, Kennedy Ife. In 2016, Kennedy Ife lost his life in very mysterious circumstances. He began complaining of a pain in his throat, and by the summer of that year, he flew into a fever. His family, being deeply religious and connected to the Jesus Sanctuary Ministries in southeast London, they set about to cure him by performing an amateur exorcism. They restrained him for 3 days, which eventually led to the 26-year-old's death from dehydration and neglect. The whole family was arrested for manslaughter, but according to the BBC, they were all released and found not guilty. If in fact Kennedy was simply sick and died from mistreatment by his family, then the family should have been convicted. So why is it that the family got off scot-free for the neglect and torment of their son? Was it the fact that they found evidence of something else? Who knows? Number 5, Florida devil worshipping. In 2018, the plot of 2 young girls from Bartow, Florida was foiled before they were able to enact their evil plan. Apparently, they had planned to kill several of their classmates and drink their blood, possibly eat their flesh too. They brought several blades to school, including a butcher knife, a paring knife, scissors, and a pizza cutter, along with a goblet. The girls claimed to be Satanists and they planned the event over a couple of days. Thankfully, one girl warned her friend not to come to school that day, told the teacher, who called the police, who caught the girls. They apparently wanted to kill at least 15 people and planned to wait in the washroom for unsuspecting victims. At the home of one of the girls, they found a hand-drawn map of the school and found conversations on their phones with more details of their plan. The girls claimed to hail Satan but had no further ties to Satanism. In fact, Satanism as a religion is non-theistic, humanistic, and anti-superstition, according to Lucien Greaves, co-founder of the Satanic Temple. Beyond the statement, the girls had no further evidence of satanic practices, which leaves the question, what really got into these girls' heads? How did they arrive here? Were these 2 natural-born killers looking for an excuse? Or did the devil indeed make them do it? Number 4, in Indianapolis Possession. This case is one of the most infamous exorcism cases to hit the Indianapolis Star. Has over 800 pages of official records. The tales vary but surround the possession of 3 of the children who were allegedly possessed by demons. They would climb up walls, get thrown across rooms, and when their children were brought to the doctors, they would threaten them in voices darker than their own. This sounds like a horror film, so this makes the list. The records include interviews with police, DCS personnel, psychologists, family members, and Catholic priests. One report of one of the youngest girls recounts that she had a peculiar grin and walked backwards up a wall to the ceiling. Another one of the girls reportedly felt choked and held down so hard she couldn't speak or move. Another boy in the house would sit in a closet and speak to someone no one else could see. Some say this case has been debunked, while others still hold true to the impossible, that this haunting was so real that it's just too hard to believe. Number 3, the Watcher. Imagine finding your dream home only to find out someone else already possessed it. A New Jersey family never expected the events that would follow moving into their $1.3 million dream home. It was exactly where the family had always wanted to live, but no sooner after they first crossed the threshold, they began receiving mysterious letters. The letters were signed by the Watcher, who said that he was charged with watching the house and waiting for its second coming. The letters got more and more detailed, referring to their children by name and knowing every single move they made as if he was right across the street. The letters asked, and I quote, "Have they found out what's in the walls yet?" unquote, and would say dark things like, quote, "I am pleased to know your names now and the name of the young blood you have brought to me," unquote. Oof. But despite even the involvement of the FBI, they never discovered who the Watcher was. It was an extensive search, you guys, and they never figured it out. Sadly, the family was never able to sell the house at the value they bought it. They were forced to flee and file a lawsuit against the previous owners for not informing them. Duh. Number 2, Annelise Michel. The possession of Annelise Michel is one of the most controversial exorcism cases known and inspired the film The Exorcism of Emily Rose. But without the barrier of a film screen, the story is terrifying. More often than not, especially hundreds of years ago, no one understood the extent of mental illness and the torment it could cause, and many mistook it for possession. So upon hearing this story, it does sound like Annelise was suffering and in fact had a history of mental illness and epilepsy, for which she had been treated at a psychiatric hospital before. But when Michelle was 16, she relapsed and tried to take her own life, drank her own urine, and began to hear voices. But it was the fact that she spurned specifically religious religious objects, and that no medicine seemed to ease her pain, that the family begged a priest to investigate. 2 local priests secretly began their work and began treating her with exorcism rites. Over 67 exorcisms were performed over 10 months, ultimately resulting in her death. There are 43 cassette tapes that feature weird voices coming from Anne, and she even says the names of the demons. There's obviously a lot more to this story, and though many upon first hearing it believe it as a case of religious fanaticism gone wrong, the more you dig, the more the answers seem to get elusive. And last but not least, the possession of Clara Germana. She was a Christian student at St. Michael's Mission in Natal, South Africa in 1906, but for some reason, perhaps in an act of curious rebellion, Clara made a pact with the devil when she was just 16. Days later, Clara was overtaken by dark impulses and repulsed by religious artifacts. She suddenly could speak and understand languages she'd never heard of, and by accounts, could read the minds of the people around her. When 2 nuns suddenly found her levitating 5 feet in the air, an exorcism was called on her. She tried to strangle one of the priests with his stole, and 170 people attest to seeing her levitate once again when he read the scriptures. It took 2 days to expel the demons from her body. For 6 years, Clara lived without a single demon, that is until she mysteriously died of heart failure when she was just 22 years old. And that was our list of top 10 true stories scarier than The Conjuring Part 2. If you like this video, you know what to do, and you know we listen to you. Comment down below on what story you think should be on here next, and subscribe to stay up to date on all things terrifying. I've been your host, Raechel Fisher, and until next time guys, take care.